Welcome to Fall, Rise, Give, a space where we invite you to dig into the real cause of your suffering, looking at opportunities for growth with a change in your beliefs, thoughts, and actions so you can be your true self and be inspired. Join us as we explore life's ups and downs and navigate the twists and turns, sharing stories of resilience, hope, and the transformative power of giving back. Whether you're looking for a change, in recovery, or simply seeking inspiration, this podcast is your go-to for candid conversations, raw emotions, and a whole lot of heart. Tune in and discover how to fall, rise, and give back on life's extraordinary journey. Welcome to another edition of Fall, Rise, Give. I'm one of your hosts, Bartender Bob. Kumar, of course, joining us as well. Kumar, hello. And Bardia is our special guest. And Bardia, you got the name Bar in your name, yet you are a non-drinking dude that teaches people not to drink. What's your story, Bardia?
Yeah, man. Well, Bob and Kumar, I appreciate you guys having me on. It's a pleasure. And I appreciate the opportunity to share my story and kind of the message. Man, I mean, story really goes back all the way to childhood, you know? So I grew up in a pretty kind of crazy, dysfunctional family. My dad, he was an alcoholic and a very, very heavy drinker. And growing up, I experienced all the dysfunction that comes from having addiction inside the family and, you know, having a mom that was super high anxiety, a bit of OCD, and kind of everything in between. And, you know, when I was 14, my dad passed away from alcohol poisoning in his sleep. And that was really hard on the family. It kind of tore everybody apart. And I remember when I was young, I told myself I would never start drinking. I'd seen what addiction and alcohol had done to my family. And, you know, I always told myself I'd stay away from that stuff. And, you know, an interesting part of the whole story is, you know, right when my dad died, my uncle came down to help with the funeral. And my uncle was big into spirituality. And he gave me this book by a gentleman named Wayne Dyer. You guys may or may not have heard of him. He's a great spiritual
heard
guru.
of him, love him.
Yeah. He gave me a book called You'll See It When You Believe It. And I read that book at 14 years old when I didn't know the difference between my ass and my elbow. And right at this very pivotal time where I lost my dad. And that book completely expanded my map of reality and shifted my paradigm and started to teach me about consciousness and how your beliefs influence your reality and all these different things. And so it sent me down this deep rabbit hole of curiosity of trying to understand consciousness and the nature of the universe and why am I here? And, you know, it led me down a path of studying spirituality and philosophy and psychology and kind of everything in between. And then inevitably, as I get into high school around freshman, sophomore year, I start partying and I start drinking. And the very first time I pick up alcohol, I was the binge drinker type. I was never the type who could just have one or two and stop. Every time I would have a drink, a switch would go off and I would have 8 to 15, you know, or until I was pretty hammered. And right from the get-go, it created a lot of shame and guilt because I knew that like alcohol had taken my dad and destroyed my family. And I could feel myself really being pulled into alcohol. I was like absolutely obsessed with the dopamine spike that it gave me and the pleasure and the euphoria. And, you know, that continued on into high school. And, you know, I started recognizing it was really a problem when I was like 18 or 19. I started going to AA meetings and trying to figure out how to quit. But AA never resonated with me. You know, bless all those who AA works for. But their model and theory and understanding of alcohol never really clicked or made sense for me. And so, you know, throughout the 20s, you know, I continued drinking and tried to quit in different ways, but nothing really ever stuck. And so, you know, going into my life after high school, like through my teens and into my 20s, like, felt like there was this war inside of me where half of my personality was very oriented around personal development and growth and trying to fulfill my potential and become the best version of myself. And the other half of me was in this cyclical, vicious cycle of drinking and partying every weekend. And it was just like destroying my soul because they were counterintuitive to each other. And on the outside, you would have looked at me throughout my 20s and been like, yeah, Bardia's a cool guy. He's got his shit together. You know, I was very entrepreneurial. I started my first business at 21 and was involved in a lot of different types of projects. And you would have said, solid guy. He just likes to party. But on the inside, it was destroying me because I knew what my potential was. I knew that there was so much more to life, but I was not able to get there and unlock it because I wasn't able to put the alcohol down. It was always getting in the way. Fast forward through the 20s, the pandemic hits a few years ago, and I had a little bit of money saved in the bank, and I wasn't really working. I was taking on some side projects. And so 3 days a week of binge drinking turned to drinking every single day, and my tolerance rapidly increased. And so I went from drinking a few days a week to drinking every day, and I got up to drinking 4 to 6 bottles of wine a day. And I was doing that for about 6 months. And during that time, everything was breaking down. Mentally, emotionally, physically. Like, that's 20 to 30 drinks a day. That is rough on somebody's physiology.
That's a lot to drink.
Yeah, it was insane, man. It was insane. And I ran that script for about 6 months. And then one day a buddy of mine invited me to the pool, and I'd been drinking all day. He challenged me to a race, and I'd never lost a swimming race in my life. I'm one of the fastest swimmers I know. Ego got the best of me. He kept egging me on. I was like, no, I'm good. And we start swimming, and I'm swimming as fast as I can. And I had injured my left shoulder playing football in high school. I dislocated it, and it was still a little weak. And also my body was just broken down with inflammation, and I wasn't eating, from the alcohol. And so as I was swimming, my left shoulder like rips out of its place and was like mangled backwards, like upside down in some weird position. And it was the most excruciating pain I'd ever felt in my life. And in that moment, I had this moment of clarity where I finally was honest with myself in that moment and said, this is because of alcohol. And I finally connected alcohol to pain, because for a lot of us, alcohol, because of what it does to our neurochemistry, alcohol equals pleasure. That's what the program is that runs inside of us. And so in that moment, I anchored and imprinted alcohol equals pain. And I played the tape forward, which is one of my most famous podcast episodes that's helped hundreds, if not thousands of people, not only quit drinking, but maintain their sobriety. And I saw my life go down 2 paths. I was 29 at the time. I was a few months away from turning 30. And as I reflected in that moment, I said, I am nowhere near the man that I thought I would be at 30 years old. I'm a multiverse and a half away in terms of what I thought and knew my potential was versus how I'm actually showing up. And I played the tape forward there, and I imagined myself, well, at the rate that I'm drinking, I'm probably going to die by the time I'm 32 or 33. And I imagined myself in the hospital bed, hooked up to a bunch of machines and dying there alone, feeling the weight and the pain of the regret, having been given a lot of gifts in my life and basically like squandered my potential. The thought and idea of dying before I got to live out who Bardia can be and what Bardia is capable of, I felt that in that moment. And it was heavier and more painful than anything I could possibly imagine. And so in that moment, I felt that pain, and I told myself, listen, I'm willing to do anything I have to do to not re-experience what I just experienced, that the pain and that weight of that regret. I will open myself up to any other form of discomfort. I'll be bored. I'll feel like I'm missing out. I'll have cravings. Like, I will do whatever I have to do to not feel that. Then I played the tape forward through the positive, and I imagined my life going forward. And I said, well, shit, like when I'm not drinking, like I'm a stud, I work out, I'm pretty smart. Like, I get shit done. I'm pretty proactive. I'm entrepreneurial. Like, I feel like I can figure this thing out. If I can just figure out a way to remove alcohol, like, I trust that life will work out. And so in that moment, I made what seemed like was the most difficult and painful decision of my life, because I was obsessed with alcohol. It was the best thing that I'd ever found. And by divine timing of the universe, there are no accidents. Everything is perfect and happens exactly when it's supposed to be. They say when the student is ready, the teacher appears. I was introduced to this coaching program that I became the marketing director for. And they said, well, if you want to be our marketing director, you've got to run through our coaching system just so you understand who we are, what we're about, what we offer, so you can really market it properly. And I said, okay. And I went through that program, and it not only kept me sober and made the process of staying alcohol-free easier and more manageable than I'd ever tried before, but it began to expand my map of reality in such a way where I was able to begin connecting the dots between my childhood and trauma and psychological and emotional and behavioral patterns I put into place to protect myself from fear and insecurity and anxiety and all these different things. And I began my healing process and personal transformation journey. And I continued to stay sober throughout that time. I eventually switched from being a marketing director in that company to becoming a coach. Instantly, when I got into a coaching position, I was very, very good at it. And I also had some incredible coaches there that I could learn from. I coached maybe 50 men during that time and then helped them lead retreats. And after about 18 months, got this deep calling in my soul. Every time throughout my life, there's ever been like, hey, Bardia, it's time for a fork in the road. I feel it in my nervous system. I feel it in my gut. And so I got that call and started to figure out the transition. So I left them. And then a couple months later, a buddy of mine had been just drilling me to get on TikTok. And so I got on TikTok and I didn't know what I was going to do or what I was going to talk about. But I was like, let me see if I can start a personal brand. So my first 5-6 TikTok videos, I was literally just like creating stuff about mindset. Like they were getting 100 views, 200 views, nothing. Then one day I was at the pool and I was scrolling TikTok and I saw this video about sobriety. And I'd never seen a video about sobriety on TikTok before. And I went into the comments and it was just filled with pain. I'm on day 2. I'm on day 7. I just relapsed. This is so hard. How did you do it? How do you get through the cravings? And when I saw that, like I was in digital marketing for 10 years before I got into coaching, my like entrepreneur hat went on and I'm like, look at all these people in pain who are struggling with alcohol. I know that most of them don't resonate and want to go with AA. And I just figured out a way to get sober that's totally opposite of AA. And let's see what's here. So I posted this really silly 6-second video. It was me laying down. You could see my feet and the pool was in front of me. And it was a 6-second video with some, sappy music behind it. And it was like 5 ways my life got better since I quit drinking. I moved to a city and made some new friends. I lost 25 pounds. I increased my income, this and that. 6-second video. Posted it. Almost didn't post it. I was like, this is stupid. Within an hour, that video had 5,000 views and dozens of comments. And by the end of the day, it had 50,000 views. And I was like, holy shit. I'd never gotten traction like that on social media before. Let me just do the same thing and follow the views. Do what's working. So I posted another video about sobriety, 10,000 views, another video about sobriety, 40,000 views, another video about sobriety, 150,000 views. And by my 12th video, I broke 1 million views and started to build a following on TikTok. And I was like, shit, okay. Once I got 1,000 followers, I put a link in my bio with a calendar. People just start booking calls with me. And at first, for the first month and a half, I'm like just talking to people, helping them out, giving them free advice, sharing my story, supporting them. And then about 2 months into it, a guy's like, listen, man, I've been watching all your content. I love who you are and what you say and the way you talk about this stuff. It's different than anybody I've ever heard before. Can I pay you to help me and coach me and support me? And I was like, okay. So I took on my first client. And within a month after that, I was pretty much full-time coaching people. And, I built a sobriety and life coaching program. And it's wild. It took off. I built a following to 300,000 followers on TikTok. 8 months into getting on TikTok, I started my podcast. Last year, my podcast at one point trended in the top 50 of all podcasts in the US. And right now it's in the top 0.5% of all podcasts. Wow. And I now run one of the, I believe, most successful and like incredible sobriety and life coaching systems currently like on the planet. I think what I have and what I've built and the structure and the systems and the tools and resources are unlike anything that's currently out there. And I've worked with over 400 people and everything continues to grow and scale and expand. And I'm now 4.5 years alcohol free. And it's been the wildest, most beautiful ride and gift. And I feel very, very fortunate to be in the position that I am to be able to help and guide and serve other people now. Are
people finding you through social media mostly? New customers coming through TikTok mainly?
So originally it was TikTok and my podcast. If you search Stop Drinking or Quit Drinking on Spotify, my podcast is number 1. So I rank really well there. But people typically find me through TikTok, then they go to the podcast, or now I've kind of moved all my content over to Instagram in case TikTok gets banned. And so a lot of people find me through Instagram. then they go to my podcast, and then they reach out to me from there.
Now, do you have other coaches that work for you that are part of the program now, that you've built a system, like you said, and a program?
Yeah. So I have a community manager who provides a lot of support and manages the community. And I also have a co-coach. So interestingly enough, when I was going through this exact same system and process, the coach that was the head coach of the program that I worked at and went through, that I learned from, I brought him on as my co-coach. And so he runs my group coaching program.
That's awesome, man. It's good to see a success story. And it's interesting how being alcohol free and stop drinking gave you all this time and energy and helped you be who you truly were. Like you said, you're 50-50, doing amazing things, and then 50% blocking yourself from doing that. So the chapter I wrote last night in my book, Fall, Rise, Give, was all about what's stopping you. And one of the biggest things that I talk about what's stopping you is alcohol. There's other things. There's fear of failure. There's not being worthy, not being good enough, not being smart enough, all that stuff. But alcohol is a huge problem. Addiction as a whole is a huge problem because it alters your physiology, alters your brain waves, alters your sense of connection to the community and people. It makes you kind of a loner and embedded. And I have the same story at COVID for me as well. I started drinking a lot during COVID, working from home. I have a bottle of wine every night. I would be drinking maybe 2. But yeah, and I'd get up in the morning and I'd work out, but still every night I would need to be able to drink. And it sucked so much time and life out of me. I was living a numb life. I was basically living to work and living to drink and just feeding my family with whatever else I could do. But that's crazy. It kind of reminds me of going through the same time and how we come on the other end of it now, living alcohol free and living the life that you want to live.
Yeah.
What is the biggest challenge or struggle that you faced in your life besides the event that you mentioned about alcoholism? Or let's just talk about the recent part about your business. What's your biggest challenge right now and what's your biggest struggle?
In all honesty, I don't feel like I have a major struggle or challenge. I think I'm at a place where, I've been running this for 3 years and have worked with hundreds of people and am sort of in a transitionary process where I'm sort of on the precipice of now really kind of beginning to scale this thing out by starting paid advertising and things like that. And so I'm in a process right now of really, like, I just did a call with all my clients to gain their feedback around their experiences inside the program so far, figure out what, do we need, is there any leaks or gaps? Can we improve or optimize onboarding? Are there any types of assets you would like in terms of like course content, meditations around specific topics or ideas? And so really I wouldn't call it a challenge, but I'm just at a place right now where I'm getting ready to move into really like growing Stop Drinking Coach. And obviously that may come with some challenges, right? Because there's a lot of strategy involved to make sure that it's done right and to maintain success and the culture and energy of the program and everything else. So I feel very good about it, and I feel clear and confident going into it. Outside of that, I was in a relationship for a couple of years that was very, very challenging that I got out of recently. But I learned a lot. And coming out of that, I feel like an entirely different person in a lot of different ways. So I'm very, very grateful for that. It was very challenging, but I felt like it was, divinely orchestrated in a way for me to be able to go very, very, very deep so that I can learn from it and synthesize the information necessary to come out on the other side significantly wiser and better prepared and equipped. But outside of that, man, I feel very fortunate and grateful that like life is, especially this last month, has been flowing and expanding very well.
So Bardia, what are some of the strategies that you are sharing with your clients in order to get them on that straight and narrow path?
So a lot of it are different mental models and philosophies, right? I think at the end of the day, right, as you really dig into it, like mindset is everything. What's the perspective that we carry about what it is that we're experiencing? What's the story that we're telling ourselves, right? So a big piece of my program, I mean, there's several components to it. One is I have people follow a proactive daily system, whereas a lot of other recovery things, like they don't have that structure. So people follow a very specific routine that's holistic, that focuses on optimizing mind, body, spirit, and neurochemistry, which is the huge piece that a lot of people leave out in recovery, right? Like the obsession that we have with alcohol and the cravings that we get to drink, that's all tied to neurochemistry and low dopamine. So when you optimize dopamine, people actually have less cravings and urges to drink and feel more regulated and present in their mind and body. So that's a piece of it. A lot of it is teaching people mental and emotional regulation through the use of various modalities, whether it's like cognitive, like reframing, or neurolinguistic programming, which is a really powerful tool and resource that helps you better interpret and understand and navigate what's happening between data coming in through your five senses, what happens in your mind, how you create a picture or a movie, and then how it creates a sensation inside of your body. So giving people an expanded understanding of how to interpret and navigate some of these things. And then a lot of really powerful guided experiences. I mean, I can call them guided meditations, but something that's unique to my program is, there's these guided experiences that you go through that stack different types of healing modalities that combine, like hypnosis, breath work, anchoring, neurolinguistic programming, shifting certain modalities inside of you, going from association to disassociation, changing the picture or the movie that you're seeing. Like, there's these like guided experiences that you take people through that, like, a lot of people aren't aware of the fact that you can change your relationship to memories and you can change your interpretation of what's going on inside of you because you're creating it. You have a strategy through which you remember something, right? And you can change those qualities. And by changing the qualities, it actually can release and move energy, and it can kind of shift your mindset and unlock certain things. And so, there's a bunch of different things, but having the community piece is another big one, right? A lot of us, we try to quit drinking on our own. And if we have alcohol use disorder, we all understand the vicious cycle. You go a week, a few weeks, a couple months, and then that voice kicks in. Hey, look how good you're doing. All your problems are gone. Let's just have one. It'll be different this time. And boom, you're right back into it. So having a sense of shared community where you're doing this path with a bunch of other people who are on the same wavelength and frequency, with ongoing weekly structured coaching and a lot of resources and tools, makes really the world of difference.
When you mentioned dopamine earlier, so and the excitement, I was thinking that maybe some of the things that you were teaching people is to get out there, maybe go skydiving or go, bungee jumping or some of that stuff that would, but it doesn't sound like that's what you're pushing people toward.
Yeah, not necessarily. I think there's a lot of other healthy, holistic ways to increase dopamine naturally. Yeah, which I don't talk too much about. That's kind of some of the proprietary stuff that's in the program. Right. But I mean, not stuff that you can't find online if you really searched for it and knew what you were looking for.
So how'd you come up with the name, the Stop Drinking Coach?
It's a good question, man. So as I was building everything out, I was like, okay, well, I got to come up with a personal brand. And I was like, I'd been in digital marketing, so I understand the value of search engine optimization and keywords. And so I thought, like, let me just go straightforward, be the guy. I'm the Stop Drinking Coach. And, that's it. I'm the Stop Drinking Coach. Like, I'm the guy, right? And I thought that's a great name because it has the word stop drinking in it. And that's typically a set of words that people would research if they're trying to stop drinking. So there was a part of me that figured I would get the SEO value, and that would help with my organic rankings across different online properties. And I took a bet on that, and I was right.
I just want to add to that as well. You talked a lot about mindset. I have a coaching system that I'm just developing right now. It's called emindset.coach. So I purposely also use the keywords mindset and coach nice. As part of the URL, because that's the brand that I wanted to build based on SEO value to be able to find it once that gets going. So I put the website out there, got a little app going there. But really, over time, once I'm ready, I've got a full-time job that I do during the day that pays the bills. And so this is more of a hobby passion that I want to turn into a livelihood. But to get there, I'm actually going through a certification course through a major university. on mindset and lifestyle and wellness, and deals with addiction and behavioral psychology and all of that stuff. So yeah, that's really cool that you're already doing it organically, which is awesome.
Thanks, man.
So, what kind of habits or routines have you developed to replace your old behavior of going out and partying and drinking and being Bardia the barbarian?
Yeah. That's a good one, man. I think that was probably one of my names at some point. In the first year of sobriety, I just tried to maintain a very holistic routine. So I was meditating, I was, working out every day. I was consuming a lot of really good information around mindset, growth, healing, personal development. In my free time, I would just try to hang out with friends and do things that didn't involve going to a bar, which was, we go work out, we go check out a new restaurant, we go catch a movie. They'd come to my house, I'd go to their house. In the first year of sobriety, I also played a lot of video games online, a lot of Call of Duty, all that stuff that gives you a nice dopamine spike and is a good distraction. So that was really helpful. And, over time, as I didn't have as many like cravings and urges to drink, which happens for everybody, which I think is really, really important, right? Because when you're in the alcohol, the thought and idea of living without alcohol is daunting and scary. And you think you're going to be perpetually bored and missing out and feeling flat and nothing's going to satisfy you. But it's just not true. After enough time, your mind, your body, your physiology, your neurochemistry begins to heal. And waking up and being a non-drinker is just as normal as putting on your pants or brushing your teeth or the sun coming up. So I haven't had to think about it in over 3.5 years, which I'm really grateful for. And at this point in my life, I love what I do. I'm extremely passionate about the work that I do. I love supporting people, coaching people, helping people heal and transform. And then outside of that, in my free time, I'm usually either doing something, strategizing on the business side of things to grow Stop Drinking Coach and to make it more effective, or I'm spending time with friends, or, here in Austin where I live, there's actually tons of social events. And while Austin has a really big drinking culture with tons of bars, I'm pretty integrated into a group of people where they're very social. A lot of them are entrepreneurs and business owners, and nobody drinks. And alcohol is just not part of the party scene and gatherings and things like that. So it's really authentic, and everybody's really just connected and like involved in each other's lives in really positive and productive ways, where alcohol is just no longer necessary as a crutch or social lubricant. So I like to stay on top of my own personal health and mindset and growth. And then in my free time, traveling and spending time with good people.
So were you mad at yourself for starting to drink after you told yourself that you weren't going to drink after your father died?
Yeah, I was. There was a lot of shame. There was a lot of guilt. I knew how hooked I was. And at the time I couldn't imagine living without it. And so, yeah, it was a war. There was constant chaos because, again, half of me was like, dude, we got to figure out a way to become who we can be. We got to start fulfilling our potential. We got to grow business. We got to make money. We got to grow. We got to start leveraging our skills. We got to start doing the thing. But then this other part of me was like, Thursday, Friday comes around and I was physically addicted to alcohol. A lot of people just have like mental cravings. Like for me, my whole body is tightening up and I'm feeling anxious, and it's like, and it's like, I fucking give into them. And then boom, every single time I woke up, not just one time, like every single time I woke up after drinking, I was like, why the fuck did I do that? I'm never drinking again. So I've told myself I'm never drinking again a couple thousand times, so I get it.
I think we've all told ourselves that. I'm never touching a drop of that again.
Yeah.
Oh, no.
3, 4, 5 days goes by. You start feeling better. You're like back to baseline. You're like, all right, let's party,
That's crazy how that changes on a daily basis or what have you. Give yourself some space. You're doing so well. It's just one drink. It's not going to hurt anything. Slippery slope.
Very slippery.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. The biggest thing that we ask is, how do you want to be known, Bardia?
It's a great question, man. I've thought about that quite a bit. I started reflecting on my mortality when my dad died, because I realized like, oh, this thing isn't forever. And it's been a deep part of like my psyche and consciousness is like, as I've grown and have developed myself and have come to understand myself in different ways and applied myself in different ways and seen who I've started to see who I've become and what my potential is. You know, if I look at like end goal, like long-term vision, you know, another 40, 50 years, whatever, I want to leave my mark on earth as the guy who ultimately developed a new understanding and process to help society, like humanity, our collective consciousness, rise out of the vibration of addiction into healing and personal transformation. I think I'll continue to run Stop Drinking Coach for the next several years and then continue to go deep into the world of healing and spirituality and speaking and things like that. And so without the ego getting involved, like there's a part of me that's like, I want to be remembered as like a modern day prophet. I'm the Stop Drinking Coach and I help people quit drinking because that was my path and my journey. And I've seen how you can begin fulfilling your potential and becoming like living your life's true syllabus on the other side of this. But it's not just quitting drinking. What I'm a true advocate for, what's the underlying driver of my mission and purpose, is expanding consciousness and helping people access their potential.
How do people find more information about you, Bardia, and about the Stop Drinking Coach?
My personal brand across the board is the Stop Drinking Coach. So you can go to my website, www.thestopdrinkingcoach.com. I offer one-on-one coaching directly with me. I also have a group coaching program. It's a year-long container designed to give you the systems, tools, support, structure, accountability, and ongoing weekly coaching to help you achieve a year free from alcohol, which I think is kind of the place that we all want to get to for really long-term success. You can find my Instagram at the Stop Drinking Coach. My TikTok is at Stop Drinking Coach. You can find me on YouTube, the Stop Drinking Coach. I've got some of my podcasts in video format there. And my email is support@thestopdrinkingcoach.com. Whatever you feel like you're using alcohol for, right? To manage stress, to manage your social anxiety, whatever you're outsourcing to alcohol, you actually have the ability to resource within yourself. And the journey of quitting drinking actually has nothing to do with alcohol. It's getting to a place in your life where you develop the courage to go inward, to begin reconnecting with your true authentic self, and to begin looking at yourself in a deeper way that's more honest and compassionate, so you can begin working through things from your past, whether it's big T or little t trauma or challenges you've gone through or relationships that were difficult or grief that you still carry or a lack of self-confidence or whatever it might be. And that whatever it is that you're using alcohol for, you can develop within yourself. And the fears that you have around quitting drinking, that it's going to be boring and dull and you're going to be perpetually missing out, and how am I going to socialize and what are people going to think of me? Trust me when I say that this journey it's a journey of a mental, emotional, physical, spiritual, and neurochemical recalibration process. And that the way that you feel in early sobriety is not indicative of how you're going to feel for the rest of your life. You can get to a place where cravings are virtually gone, and that you can get to a place where you can fully harness the energy of your human operating system to begin to go out and architect and create the life that you want for yourself.
Thank you for joining us on this episode of Fall, Rise, Give, where we explore stories of resilience, growth, and giving back. If you enjoyed today's episode, please visit our website at www.fallrisegive.com. Also, consider subscribing to our podcast on your favorite platform and leaving us a review. Your feedback helps us to continue to bring you inspiring stories. Stay tuned for our next episode, and remember, every fall is a chance to rise, and every rise is an opportunity to give. Until next time, keep falling, rising, and giving. This is Fall, Rise, Give, produced by podcastforhire.com. Thank you for listening.